Cause I need a phone, what you call that? Ventador in all black, 4G autos, all that. Have posters on my wall, so give me some room. She ain't called back, can't wait to see you crawl back. Gon' dub the bitch, fall back and stack it till it's tall. Bitch, I'm on that.
Fair enough.
We talked from me to you. We did the Nest thing. Blah blah blah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, yeah. I now, repeating from last week, we kind of went on Reddit a little bit, and I wanted to do that again this week. This time we're going on r/confessions, and I've tried to find the weirdest confessions I could find.
All right.
So, first one says, my girlfriend said I am not affectionate enough, so now I treat her like my dog. I rarely show emotion. I'm very reserved and level-headed, so my emotions, whether positive or negative, rarely spike too much. But I love my dog more than anything or anyone. Whoa, that's a problem, bro. If you're in a relationship, that's a problem. Anyway, she gets more life and emotion out of me than anyone. My girlfriend recently sat me down and told me she needs more affection. She knows I don't wear my emotions, and that generally includes her, even though she knows I love her. I'm not handsy. I kiss her when appropriate and let her know I love her when appropriate. Since that talk, I've been thinking of my affection for her like I do my dog. I get super excited to see her like my dog does when I get home. My dog constantly wants scratches, so I always rub her shoulders or play with her hair or have my hand on her thigh. I love when my dog gets kissy and playful, so I get kissy and playful with my girlfriend in the same way. My dog loves when I give her a new toy or treat, so I have little gifts and snacks to give her when the mood strikes. What a difference. My girlfriend loves it. And it's easy for me because I literally just treat her like my dog, but without the baby voice. It's renewed our passion, and she is so happy. I can't understand how I turn my emotions around so easily. TLDR, which, by the way, I don't really know what TLDR means. Anyways, girlfriend wanted more affection. I just do the things to her that I do to my dog because I love my dog more.
Oh God. I don't even know where to go with that one.
It's weird because
Very.
girls always say, "Oh, don't treat me like a dog," or people always say like, "Oh yeah, don't treat me like a dog," but this dude is literally treating her like a dog, and it's working.
Yeah. You can hear the struggle in my voice right now, but what? Huh? I don't get it, man. I don't.
I mean, whatever works, but
Yeah.
if you love your dog more than your girlfriend, I'm starting to think there's an issue with your relationship, and this might be a temporary fix.
Yeah.
So who knows?
Oh God. Oh yeah. All right.
The second one is pretty dark.
Oh.
I stood by and allowed my wife to almost kill our son. I was happy she did it. All right. Well, I have not read this before. This is we're gonna get through this, but Fair warning, this one is long as hell. So apologies for that.
dear God.
But this is very hard for me, and I have been carrying it for a lot of years. This is him saying that too. So on the advice of my therapist, I've written it all out to try and work out my feelings on it. He didn't advise me to submit it to Reddit, of course, but I have struggled with this for a long time, and I need to hear people blah, 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 blah. He went through a lot of shit. All right, anyways. Fuck off. Let's get to the juicy shit. My son was very troubled. Very troubled. If you have seen the movie We Need to Talk About Kevin, it will really help to understand what I'm talking about, because I swear to God, blah, blah, blah. Alright, fuck this. Skip that. The only difference is that in the movie, the boy appears normal to his father and only reveals his true nature to his mother. With my son, he didn't have that mask. His insane behavior was the same with everyone. From the day he was born, my son came out wrong. He was planned. My wife and I tried to get pregnant, and were ecstatic when he was born. He was wanted and loved. We showered him with affection we showered affection on him and really tried to give him a happy childhood. But from the day we brought him home from the hospital, he was miserable. He cried for 13 months straight. You're just describing a baby right now. What the fuck?
Yeah.
I'm not exaggerating. 13 months without a break. He cried. He had no voice left, kept crying. You should see his little face scrunched. Okay, shut the fuck up. Your kid crying. I'm starting to think this guy is a little bit overreacting. But anyways.
Yeah.
Once he got over the crying stage, we thought we were out of the woods. But it quickly became clear that for some unknown reason, he was just angry at being alive. I never saw that kid have a genuine, joyous smile once in the time I knew him. I saw him grin a vicious, horrible grin many times, taking perverse pleasure from causing pain or suffering or breaking a rule. But a smile from real pleasure at something nice? No, never. Not once. He had no interest in anything positive. He was fueled by hate, and everything he did was bent towards that. As soon as he could walk, his mission in life was to destroy things. He would break or try to break anything that came in his range, smash it, chew it, throw it in the toilet, whatever he could. After a while, he figured out how to get his diaper off and took great pleasure in shitting and pissing anywhere he could.
All right.
Once again, this kid's just being a kid.
Yeah.
After a while, he figured out he could hide it and started pissing and shitting in places we couldn't find right away, grinding it into carpets, making it even more of a problem to clean, and making the house stink. When he got older, ages 9 to 15, he would piss and shit in our bed. Okay, it's getting excessive.
Yeah.
Until we got a lock on our door, and he wasn't able to get in anymore. Then he'd just take a dump in the hallway in front of our room. That biological warfare started around 2.5 years old, and he never grew out of it. Okay. I'll try to speed it up, as I could literally go on for days about this stuff. But as he grew older, he became more and more unmanageable. He would bite, kick, scream, scratch, and spit at anyone trying to do anything with him. He was kicked out of school twice before he was 9. Then let him back in, and then kicked out for good. He had to change schools. The next would put him in a special class that kept him away from the other students. We had to install a door and lock on the kitchen because he would steal knives and use them to gouge the walls and furniture or chase people with them. When he was 10, he stabbed me pretty good in the hip and ass. I still have the scars. As he grew older, he grew darker. He moved he moved into setting things on fire and torturing local animals. There was a stray dog that hung out around the park near our house. My son blinded it in one eye with a barbecue fork. He would dip cats' tails in gasoline and light them on fire. He became violent, stinking, vicious beast. Oh, he became a violent, stinking, vicious beast in our that lived in our house. We couldn't do anything with him. I will take this opportunity to preempt the tsunami of messages. Yes, we had a kid we had the kid in fucking therapy. He saw a psychiatrist twice a week and had God knows how many different medication prescribed to him over the years. Nothing worked. Therapy didn't work. Meds didn't work. Nothing fucking worked. He was like a poison cloud of hate and fury, lashing out at anything in his reach.
Jesus.
When my son was 16, my wife got pregnant again. I can't tell you how different our reaction was. Instead of joy, we felt horror. This pregnancy had not been planned, and we really were at a loss over what to do. My son had been such an unending nightmare for 16 years, we couldn't take the idea of starting from the beginning. We talked a lot about terminating, but A, access to abortion was not as easy in those days as it is now, and B, my wife is very against it. We talked about many options. In the end, we decided that my wife would have the baby, and it turned out evil would put it. If it turned out to be evil, we would put it up for adoption. Okay. We knew we just couldn't do it again with another child like our son. We had a daughter. She was normal. Suddenly, we saw our lives change. What our lives should have been, like the whole time, how things would have been had our son not been himself. She laughed at things. She breastfed without biting. After 4 months, she was sleeping through the night. She was happy. She was normal. I can't describe the relief and happiness that we both felt. I don't have the words for it. Anyways, let's get to the point where this fucking bitch almost kills him. My son had to go. Where is it? Holy shit, this is... Okay, yeah. Basically. So, let's just run this down before we get into what this is actually about.
Yeah.
Fucking troublemaker kid, never happy, fucking psychopath, basically.
Yeah.
Alright. After a long while... Okay, let's see here. On the day in question, I had fought with my son in the morning, and he had left the house in a rage. My wife and I were enjoying some peace and quiet in the kitchen while our daughter napped in our bedroom. And then my daughter began crying. Any parent who has young children can tell you get used to a child's cries, and you can tell after a while what they needed. They cry differently if they are hungry or need changing or are just restless and want to be held. Babies can communicate pretty well before they can speak. This cry was none of those things. This cry was terror. The second we heard it, my wife and I were both up out of our chairs and running to the room. The door was locked, of course, and it took a few seconds to get the right key and get it open. My son was in the room. We lived in a bungalow, and the bastard had climbed in the window to get to her. He was standing over her crib with a steak knife in his hand. I have no idea where he got it. It wasn't one of ours. We controlled our knives very carefully and always kept them in locked drawers. Yeah. I think he may have stolen it from one of our neighbors' houses. He had broken her skin twice already. Once in the belly area and once on her arm. I could see blood running down. When I entered the room, he was dragging the back of the knife down her face, not cutting, almost tickling her with it, teasing her while she screamed. He looked up at us and smiled. Before I knew what I was doing, I was already moving, running to put myself between them. I didn't think about it. I just moved instinctively. Even with that, my wife got there faster, and it was like a movie on fast forward. She got to our son, then bashed his hand away, knocking the knife across the room, and then shoved him with her whole body weight so hard that he flew from the crib and bounced off the wall. I picked up my daughter and held her while my wife screamed us. I could see her shaking, almost convulsing. I can remember the smell of the room, the sound of my daughter screaming and wailing, the look on my son's face as he stood there, just nothing, blank, dead. There was nothing in his eyes, no emotion. He looked like an alien to me. I watched my wife take a step towards him. I could have reached out and stopped her, but I didn't. She stepped forward again, very close to him. I could have stopped her again, but I didn't. She waited, looking at him for maybe 3 to 5 seconds without moving, and then she punched him in the face. Now, until this point, you may have been picturing my wife as a typical woman, small frame, dainty, delicate. This is not the case. My wife does not have a small frame, but dainty and delicate she is, or does have a small frame, but dainty and delicate she is not. Never has been since I've known her. Since her early teens, my wife has been a boxer. MMA didn't exist back then, but karate and boxing were big in those days, and my wife was very talented amateur. She was about 130 pounds. She carried a lot of muscle, and she knew how to punch. I had 70 pounds on her back then, and I have no doubt in a real fight between me and her, she could have and would have pounded me flat. Neither of us had ever laid a hand on our son in anger before, but something broke in her that day, and all the years of anger and pain and frustration came pouring out. When she hit him, his head snapped back and blood started pouring out of his nose. He hardly reacted. He just looked at her with this shocked expression, like he didn't know how to process what had just happened. She waited another second, and then she hit him again. I could have reached out and stopped her. I could have dragged her out of the room, then taken her away, calmed her. I didn't. I stood there and watched while she systematically started pounding him to a pulp. Every time he brought his hands to cover one part, she would blast him somewhere else. Body, head, over and over. He started screaming, crying out, yelling for her to stop. It's the most genuine reaction I'd ever seen him have to anything in his whole life. But she wasn't stopping. I watched her ramping up, hitting harder, faster, working on him like a heavy bag. He tried to swing at her, and she slipped him easily. She was on autopilot, sinking down into her training. I stood there watching for a minute. Then I turned my back on them and took my daughter out of the room. Brought his daughter to the kitchen, gave her a bath. I found that she had a cut on her foot. In our bedroom, I could hear my son screaming, calling my wife horrible names, telling her he would cut her head off and fuck her corpse. After a while, I didn't hear him saying anything anymore. Didn't even hear him crying out. I assumed he must have been knocked out, but I could still hear her beating him. That went on for a long time, long enough for my daughter to drift off to sleep in my arms. I just sat at the kitchen table waiting for her to finish. What the fuck? After a long while,
I've been sitting here this whole time, and my eyes have just been widened as to what the fuck am I listening to? This sounds like a demonic fucking child praises Satan every single night, and just
Bro,
holy fuck.
legitimately, like, this is a real life horror movie. Like, this is the
Real.
shit. You can't make this up.
Nah,
Nah.
unless you're sick and twisted.
Yeah. After a long while, I heard moaning and sobbing coming from our room. It turned out that my son wasn't dead. Oh wow, this dude's resilient. I went to see how bad it was, and it was pretty bad. I've never seen more merciless beating laid onto anyone before or since. He was laying on the floor, rolling around with blood leaking out of his face, lying in a pool of vomit. His nose was squashed flat out of his face, or across his face. Both of his eyes were completely swollen shut and started to blacken already. I could see that a couple of his fingers were bent out at weird angles, and he had pissed his pants. I think he must have. I think he must have been missing teeth, but I couldn't see any on the floor, and I couldn't see inside his mouth. His lips were all puffed up and swollen. From talking to my wife about it later, I know now that she had systematically beaten every part of his body, focusing heavily on his legs. She told me that she kicked him in the groin repeatedly until her legs got tired and had kept beating his body long after he passed out. When my wife came out of the shower, I still didn't know what to do about our son. I didn't know whether to call the police or an ambulance, take him to the hospital myself. I honestly didn't have any idea what to do. After a while, I realized that I simply didn't care what happened to him anymore, and we decided to just let him live or die on his own. There was an in-law suite in the basement that we had never really used, and my wife, my daughter, and I moved down there. And we simply ceded the top floor of the house to my son and locked everything down. Separated our lives entirely. There was plenty of food upstairs in the cabinets, enough for a couple weeks or more. He had a washroom and bedrooms to use. We had a washroom in the basement and a small kitchenette and a separate entrance. So we just stopped going upstairs and we just decided we were done with him. I figured we'd let this food run out and see what happened. What the fuck? This is just getting crazier.
Yeah.
All right, we're coming to the end, thankfully. Over the next week, we could hear him moving around upstairs sometimes. I think he just spent most of the time lying in bed recovering. I went to work watching on high alert in case he attacked me in the driveway, but he never did. My wife stayed home with our daughter. She was never out of our sight. One night we heard him going ballistic, smashing things and banging. We didn't respond. He never tried to get downstairs or get near us, though. I think he was afraid that if he got near us again, my wife might finish the job on him. After 3 weeks down in the basement, we hadn't heard anything from up above for a few days, and I ventured upstairs to the main floor of the house. The place was demolished, and there was no sign of my son. He was gone. It took months to repair the damage he had done and get the main floor back to normal. There was food and shit smeared all over the walls and broken glass on the floor with big holes in the drywall. He had ripped the place apart. He tore the linoleum in a corner of the kitchen and emptied an entire foam fire extinguisher into the living room. I feel thankful that he didn't burn down the house with us in it. I'm honestly not sure why he didn't. The kid wasn't shy about lighting things on fire. after that, I lived in fear every day that he would come back, and that he would ambush us out of the blue and try to kill us. We moved house after 3 years, or 3 years later, and I finally stopped being afraid that he would show up again. As now he had no idea where we were. I finally felt safe from him. All this happened a long time ago. My son was born in the spring of 71. My daughter was born in 88. I am an old man now. I'll be 70 this year, and my wife passed from cancer in 2016. My daughter is 31 now. I moved in with her and her husband after my wife passed. I've got 2 granddaughters, and they are the joy of my life. I see a therapist a couple times a month to talk about all of this. I don't know where my son is. The last time I saw him was when he was lying on the floor of our bedroom, bleeding and smashed. I haven't heard from him since he left, more than 30 years now, and I don't want to. I carry a lot of guilt from that time and a lot of conflicted emotions. I didn't beat him myself, but I allowed him to be beaten, and I thought he deserved it. I was happy it happened. I didn't try to kill him, but I would I would have been happy if he died. I will say that I hope he was able to overcome his demons and go live a normal life somewhere. If he wasn't able to do that, if he stayed the way he was, then I truly do hope someone out there killed him. When I knew him, he was a rabid dog, and whichever way it went, I just hope he isn't still out there hurting someone else. Holy fucking shit.
Dog, that took up most of the fucking episode.
I didn't know it was that long, and I didn't know it was that dark.
I don't even know if I want to speak on that. That's like some next Ted Bundy shit.
Bro, I even had like a third one lined up. I don't think we're going to get to that. Wow.
What the fuck? How does it get that bad?
I don't even know. One thing I will say, this would never happen nowadays, though. That is one thing I'm kind of glad. This was clearly before people understood mental health, and so they said he was given drugs and like saw a psychiatrist and whatever, but they didn't know as much about the human brain as they do now. So this kid was troubled. And I mean, as much as the first like part was a little bit dramatic, saying that he just never stopped crying, that was just a baby, like but I mean, I want to follow up. I want to know where the son is. I want to know if the son died, if he became a serial killer. I'm intrigued.
I want to know what's happening. Yeah, same. Dude, they can make a fucking movie out of this, and I'd watch it.
It is a very good plot to a movie. Like, legitimately.
As fucked as that sounds.
Like,
as fucked as it sounds.
It genuinely is a real life horror movie.
Yeah.
I mean, fuck.
I don't even know, man.
I mean, literally, the third one I had lined up is so vastly different. It's almost, even if it's probably true, but you know, it's kind of funny. Like, not the context, but just the idea of it. My father has been paying me to have sex with him since I was a teenager, but it ended yesterday.
Yeah, we'll get into that next week.
Yeah.
Dude, I don't know if I feel bad for the kid or the parents.
the kid definitely had something wrong with him.
Well, 100%.
And I mean, sort of glad that we know that there was no real human victims, as
Yeah.
far as we know. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, no, I can agree with that. Thank fuck.
it almost sounds like a bullet was dodged, maybe, possibly.
Oh, 100%.
But yeah, to think of what happens later, it's like, well, one, I don't think this kid probably didn't have any friends, so I don't know where he went. He was 16.
Yeah.
I kind of think he probably died in the wilderness somewhere.
Probably.
But then, yeah, other than that, it's like, well, if he did somehow find a way to survive, was he changed or was he not? And I guess we'll never know.
Yeah, I guess.
That's going to be for today's episode.
Yeah, alright.
Fuck.
Oh, I feel weird.
Yeah.
Fuck.